What's going on, people? It's Mr. Dog back again with the review show. I hope everyone's fit and well. And yes, as you know, Nottingham Forest drawn 1-1 with Aston Villa last night at the City Ground. Are you happy with the point? Are you disappointed? People get in the comments, get involved. What's your opinion on the game yesterday? If you are new to the channel, please do hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and comment below, people. What was your thoughts on yesterday's game? Right. Before we do start, we get the panel in, and the usual panel. We'll start with the man next to me, Dylan. 1-1. I told you so. This guy keeps. He's been annoying since the final.
Hold on 1 minute. Hold on 1 minute. Hold on. Did I not tell you? Wait. No, it's not worked.
Oh, here we go. He said to me to do this, but yeah, Dylan said to me he got 1-1 right, and Dylan did get that right. In the comments below, people, did you get the result right or wrong? Next up, got the man himself, Eze. How you doing, Ez?
I'm really good, mate. Yeah, really good, mate. Good to see you all last night as well. Yeah, it was good. It was good atmosphere in here. So yeah, we've got a lot of good things to talk about today. So that's positive.
And last but not least, we've got the ill person. Like I said, as you know, Des never wears his heart. He looked like a homeless person on the street. So people, if you want to donate any money to Des to get a shave, please do, people, because he's ill. Des, you said you're ill. There's a few comments, Des, feeling sorry for you. How are you feeling, Des?
I'm all right. I'm just really, really tired. For the last few hours, I've been on the sofa, just flicking through social media, little bits and bobs. You filled me in just before. We're looking forward to the show and talking about a slightly more positive result. I've got my opinions on the game and the performance, but I'm sure we'll come to that. So just looking forward to getting stuck in.
Exactly, people. Like I said, people get involved, get in comments. Like I said, we're gonna get everyone's opinion about yesterday's game, and I will go through the comments as well. But sometimes I do miss comments, and I will go through the comments before I get everyone's opinion. Like I said, I'll start with the comments of this. Hello, James. How are you doing? Hello. Derek. Hello, people. Derek is a member. If you want to be a member as well, it only costs $2.99 a month. It helps me. It helps my channel as well. Home away games, review shows as well. So if you can help me a lot and be a member, please do. Just before I go to channel, El Rez, hey Dog, good to we didn't get 3 points, but happy we got something out of the game. This time, bring on Wolves, 100%. That's something we'll talk about later on in the show. This is now big up. This is James. First, Dennis, an assist from Gibson White. Another point in the bag, and Curti played his first Nottingham Forest 90 minutes. I think, like I said, we'll talk about each individual performance as well, because like I said, there was some good performance there last night. This is from Marv's Evening. Oh, Ricky said great panel. Shout out to Kieran. Evening, guys. Nice to see you. Some guys yesterday. Also, Door. No more being grumpy. I'm back on Twitter just for you. Why? Listen, Kieran, I wasn't being marred. I just because I saw Des was next to me, and he was annoying as well. So that's all. Kevin, that's all. Evening, Door, Dylan, Ez, and Des. Hope you're well. Eve, I hope you're well. And there's some more comments. I can see some comments in there. Des looks like Baldy Dawn Boy. What?
Baldy Dawn Boy.
Who's that? Who's this? Patch says, bad hair day, Des.
That's true. I'm getting it cut tomorrow.
Oh, Des. Another one. Des looks like a bank robber in a hat. He's weird. People in the comments, what does Des look like? People in the comments, get involved, man. What does he look like? Right, we'll start with yesterday's game. Like I said, there's lots to talk about, and you know, on Twitter there's been loads of things about what's been happening. People has lost their job as well. But first of all, we'll talk about the game. All of us went to the game, but I'm going to start with you, Dylan. How are you feeling, Dylan, about yesterday's game?
I'm feeling really good. No, at the time I thought 1-1 quite a good result. More I've watched a bit of highlights and listened, talked to a few people and that. It's going to be hard. It's really, really going to be hard because you try and look at the positives from the game, which there were some. You just think to yourself, was Aston Villa having a bad day? is this just how we're going to play? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm happy with the point. Do you know what I mean? But same again, 7-8 minutes after we score, we let one in. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. Az, what's your opinion on the game?
Came out of it like a bit more. I wouldn't say I was happy with it, but I was content with it. You know, I wasn't. It wasn't a game that got you off of your seat at all. You know, it was a very dull game, to be honest, in retrospect. But it was. I think it was what we needed. Obviously, a win would have been perfect, but if we go on to about the way the game played out, it seemed like from like maybe even from half time, both teams were settling for a draw. That's how it came across anyway. Certainly from the hour mark, you know, there wasn't really much attacking threat from either team. But, you know, considering where we were and where the club was, where the fans were feeling after the last couple of games, last 3 games, shall we say, it was a big improvement, you know, and we'll take that for now. And let's hope it gives us a bit of confidence. And that's what the players need more than anything. They need some confidence in themselves, the fans to it. And hopefully yesterday gave them a bit of confidence going into this crucial game against Wolves, because after that we've got a really big run in, you know, and I'm sure we'll get to it. But yeah, I was content coming out of the game, and happy to see that we stemmed the flow of defeats. That was most important.
100%. Like I said, there's a point after, was it 4 or 5 straight tweets in a row, but we'll take it. Last but not least, I know Des took a lot. Des, go ahead. What's your opinion about the game?
It was one where we just had to get something, wasn't it? We needed to start building. We needed to find a base to build from. The point where we start looking forward and picking up. As you know, I do a bit of a summary for pitch footy when I come out the ground. I just try and make it as sort of off the top of my head and as honest as I can be. And I kind of watched that back, and I thought I was a bit harsh at the time. I thought I was a bit overcritical. But then when I flicked through the game last night and watched little bits today, you know, and I saw Dylan today in the street, and I kind of said that I'm a little bit concerned about that performance. I don't want to be miserable. You know, I don't want to be down and flat, because it is that base to build from. You know, and Cooper tried something a little bit different, and it paid off to some degree because we didn't get beat. But what I saw during the game was lots of erratic defending. You know, not much up front. You know, some of these players, though, I'm going to be quite scathing. I'm not having them. You know, some of them aren't good enough. And last night made me realise that, looking back, I put a tweet out there saying Ryan Yates was man of the match by a mile. I actually think he was man of the match by a country mile, because he never gave up. He was part of that battling performance. McKenna does what he does. And I thought Surridge gave us something late on just to sort of go with. I just think, when you look around the pitch, you know, it's a little bit too easy. There was a point where Villa ran through the middle, and Villa were fruitless up front, to be honest. But they ran through, and the right back and Cook just ran in different directions. You know, they're lacking so much confidence, and of course, you can only get that by getting a point here, you know, nicking a win here, and getting the sleeves rolled up, and that's really what we had to do. So, whilst I was a little bit sort of cut in that. You know, I understand that it's definitely something to work with, but it worries me, because I'm worried how bad Villa are. You know, their fans were fuming with Gerrard at the end, as we could all hear. You know, they're not happy coming to Forest and getting a 0-0, and I just think that says a lot as well, doesn't it? You know, they're not in great form. Sometimes when you're not in great form, if we'd have got a 0-0 at Leicester, we'd have thought, oh, that's brilliant. You know, we move forward regardless of the positions of the table. So I just think it's worrying, but of course, yesterday there was some positives to work from, and hopefully we can build from there. What I'm getting to ultimately is, I think the players we had are much better than the players we've got now. You know, and that, whatever way people want to take that, I just think the likes of Surridge and McKenna and Yates and Worrell, you're going to get far more from, and you're going to get a lot more commitment. And I don't want to question that, because it's an easy thing when we get beat, isn't it? But I definitely thought that's been the case in the last couple of games.
Ooh, Des said, people do you agree, disagree with Des? Let me say that. And what Des said, I don't think it might be. I do agree on a certain extent as well. Like I said, I know people criticised, been criticising Ryan Yates, and for me personally, and later on we'll say who's man of match because I've got my man of match as well. Dylan, was you happy with the starting lineup?
No. Well, happy no, because how can you leave O'Brien on the bench, Mangala on the bench? Do you know what I mean? They're two. Every time we've seen Mangala, we haven't seen him much, but every time we've seen him come on in the Leicester game, and he turned the game. Do you know what I mean? He added that quality. O'Brien, how many times has a couple of times now? I think it was against Tottenham he didn't play, and then he comes on and he changed the style. You know what I mean? So obviously there's a couple like Des says, there's a few players there that shouldn't be even there, shouldn't even be wearing the.
That could.
I don't, I can't pronounce his name. Is it the one from Crystal Palace?
Canute.
Yeah, whatever.
Right, you're right. Let me stop there, Dylan. Me personally, before I get Ez in, I thought that midfield was all right. If I'm honest, that's my opinion. But let's stop there, Dylan. With Ez, what do you agree with Des and Dylan what they're saying?
Well, in regards to the criticism, I know, because I think Cooper played it a certain way because he wanted a certain result. I think, if anything, and I know you never say it, but I think he was playing for a draw yesterday. If anything, he was playing for a draw yesterday. We had to be solid. I mean, I've never seen us so compact, the midfield and the defence. There was no gaps in there, which, unlike the Leicester game, where we gave them the freedom of our midfield, to get in between us. We didn't have that gap yesterday. I think for what the formation was and for the way he wanted to play it, they did their jobs. I don't think anybody stood out. But I don't think, and Cooper said it himself, he said, that's not how I want us to play, ultimately. But he needed to stem the flow of defeats yesterday. And it sounds mad, but I think he was playing for a draw. He was just playing for us to be solid yesterday. And despite their goal, which, let's be fair, it was a cracking strike by Ashley Young. I thought he'd missed it, to be honest. I thought he'd hit the side netting and gone behind. Didn't even realise it hit the back of the net. That was a cracking strike. Other than that, they had no threat, really. There was that one header that Hendo saved, but they really didn't threaten us at all. So against the kind of team we were up against with probably less confidence than us at the moment, it worked. But going forward, that's not the way he's going to play. And that's not the middle three I want to see. That's not the three I want to see in the middle of midfield either, in that shape going forward. But for what he wanted yesterday, I believe it achieved the result, basically. He needed a result yesterday, and he got it. It's not the way we're going forward, I don't think.
Before I get to I'm looking for comments. There's quite people, what Des said, like I said, there's quite people who agree with Des. This from LGP, shout out to LGP. Des isn't massively wrong in case of team bonding and getting to know each other. So as right now isn't finished article. So Des is right to be critical. He is right. Des has his opinion. All public opinion, and you as well is watching this. You've got your opinion on if you, like I said, you agree with Des, agree with Dylan, agree with Ez. Do you disagree with me or all any of us? You've got the right to say. So, people in the comments, like I said, do you think we should have brought the players that we had last season? Get in the comments below and get involved. Des, you mentioned, like I said, I think it was Ez mentioned about that. I think that midfield. And you mentioned Ryan Yates. For me, like I said, I know I talk about Ryan Yates because I think I always praise their academy players. Like I always praise Worrell, Yates, and John Brennan because they are our academy players. And when we buy all these players from left, right, and centre, it's annoying. But at the same time, we need to improve. Tell me the reason why Ryan Yates was good for you yesterday.
Well, I just thought he's obviously got a point to prove. You know, he's not first name on the team sheet like he was last season. He knows he's got to fight, and I think the point I was really trying to get to was, it. Do you know what? When we've heard these pundits having a go at us saying we've signed too many players, we've stuck up for the club, we've stuck up for the owner, we've stuck up for the manager, we disagree with Simon Jordan, Richie Keys, however, you know, because we're loyal and we're a little bit of blind faith. But last night was the first time it really dawned on me that these players aren't really sort of up to the scratch. So watching Ryan Yates come in, fight for his place, get about that midfield. Yes, it was probably more his type of game. I think someone made the point where Ez made the point about playing for something. Okay, and I started by saying something. Somebody else made the point playing to keep a clean sheet. You can look at it either way, can't you? But I think that was definitely the case, and I think that suited Yates to some degree. But if we've got to play this formation a lot more, I think Ryan Yates looks particularly fit. You know, I think he looks really sharp, and of course he's missed a couple of games. Through injury early on and a little bit of pre-season, and that might catch up with him. But I just look now, you know, I know Dennis scored the goal, but we had nothing up front. Do you know what the game was crying out for last night? And this is what really made me start thinking about it. Keenan Davis. Do you know, I'm not saying he would have set the world alight in terms of goals and assists, but what he did do, and the Sheffield United home playoff game was a classic example of that. When we was under the cosh, he got the ball up the pitch. Whether it was just a run, pushing people off, or whether it was using his upper body to bring one down and bring in Garner or somebody like that. And now the ball's just not sticking. Do you know what? You know I love Morgan Gibbs-White. I love Brennan Johnson. You know, I'd play them every single game, regardless of what I've said about anyone else. But they're not getting that kind of service because the link-up's not there. Do you know, Yatesy is what Yatesy is. He's a ball-winning midfielder, combative. You know, he'll get about the place. At times in the Championship, he gave the ball away too much. What's still happening is we're giving the ball away too much. And the other midfielders in there with him are getting a lot of praise. And I think, well, I'm not having that because 20 yards too deep most of the time. And I know, again, we go back to what the game was about yesterday and trying to do that. But this is over several games. You know, there's no sort of physicality in there alongside him. And we're all crying out for Mangala to play. You know, but for me, it was that forward position. Morgan Gibbs-White has been tidy. You know, I thought he didn't have a good game last night. Do you know, everyone's saying he had a great game. I thought it was his worst game for Forest. They're not, you know, I'm his biggest fan. So I just felt we had nothing to stick off what they were doing. Gibbs-White had to drop back and he had to drop deep. He got run round a little bit by Matty Cash, but fair play to him. He did a job there. Johnson was feeding off scraps because the ball weren't sticking in the middle as well, you know, and we had a different sort of shape at right back. So again, it all boils down to this sort of gelling, you know, mingling, working off each other, getting to know each other and learning. And I guess to slightly contradict what I've said, or I've said it already, you know, a point is a point and it's something to build on. We go to Wolves, you know, knowing we can get something from a football match. And one way or another, we've got to try and get one. And if we're these teams are scoring 30 yarders against us, absolute worldish, you know. If the luck falls our way and we stick one of them in and we can keep it a little bit tighter, I just worried against the Villa side, you know, who look fruitless up front. You know, they still gave us enough problems to mean they could have won that game. And for me, it all boils down to not having that link play from the striker. We've all got our opinions on Awoniyi. You know, I quite like it when he plays, but I can see why he doesn't. You know, because he's a bit gangly, he's a bit loose, the ball doesn't stick, and we're looking for someone to do that. Like Foyer, I think Dennis was just playing the wrong positions. You know, we can't play with 10 outside the box. I looked at there was a stat at the end of the game. Aston Villa had 28 touches in the penalty area. Forest had 9. You know, this is for a team that didn't have any efforts, really. And again, while she's soaking it in all the time, while she's taking it, it's building pressure, isn't it? It's building. They're forcing that error, you know, and it came, didn't it? I've seen Yatesy get a bit of stick for his clearance today. I don't get that whatsoever. But he just tried his best to get rid of it. But again, they pressed us back into a position. We were backed into our penalty area. You know, potentially we should have had a free kick twice. You know, Morgan Gibbs White up the pitch, but you lose the ball. You've seen it with the Man U Everton game on Monday. Everton lost the ball twice at 1-0 up and lost the game. It was as simple as that. It was game over. And when we went to Everton, for example, you lose the ball, and before you know it, they're on it. So, yes, I totally understand. I've always said I trust Cooper and his formations and what he does. You know, but for me, I just think there's perhaps more to come from the players that did play a part last year. You know, I'd still like to see Worrell in the team. I know he started shaky, but again, the debate over Worrell, Cook, you know, I'm sure you'll potentially speak about that at some point. It's out there, isn't it? I just think if we could get those players on the pitch, as many as, you know, not all of them. I totally accept we had to add quality, but if we can get as many as them on the pitch, we can almost start building that intensity again, that sort of cup tie feel that we was going into big games last year.
100%. There's 85 people in. If you can, do a massive favour for me, hit the like button if you can, subscribe if you know. Make sure everyone subscribes to Des as well. He's got a YouTube channel, and as well, make sure everyone subscribes to Ez with Forever Red as well, people. I'm just going through comments, and like I said, all of us were talking about what happened yesterday, and I've never seen Des talk like that before. Crazy talk. What's the thing? Where's that comment? I think there's a comment. I don't know where it was. Dylan, like I said, we mentioned, like I said, with Cook as well, and I said he's an experienced defender. We still people like these players like Mangala, Bula from Wolves, even who else is not coming on? Tanya Wane, not even coming on yesterday. Is that? And we started Dennis as well. Was you happy that we started Dennis over Tanya Wane, Dylan?
Yeah, I said for a few games I wanted to see Dennis start, because every time he seemed to come on, he seemed to just lift it a bit up top with his quick feet. I thought he was good yesterday to a certain extent. Yeah, he got the goal, but I just think he holds on to the ball for too long. There was Max when we sat there at the second half, and you could see him with the ball when you just go pass, and you've got people go pass, and then next minute it gets tied in his feet and it's gone. Do you know what I mean? There was bits like that, I think, and I spoke to a couple of people and they're like, oh, he was played out of position. But Cooper said last night he's a number 9. So obviously Cooper looks at him as a number 9. So obviously he's got to do the job as being a number 9, as being in the box, round about the penalty area to try and get the balls in, if he goes that way, if he goes to a Wanye. I just think as well, going a bit off it, but I think what Cooper needs to do now is probably try. I know he's got that many players and he's trying to find out who's doing what, but I think he needs to stick to a bit of a starting 11. You know what I mean? Because it seems to be every game there's 2, 3, 4. Like last night, 5 changes. That's no good for a team. Do you know what I mean? But we know that looking at him, is he just trying, right, well, I'm going to go for this formation, so I need to find out what these are like, because 24 players, you learn. He's got to learn in the Premier League. So every game is basically, you can only learn so much on a training field until you're in a game. Do you know what I mean? But I think now maybe there's a time where he needs to go, well, if he's going to stick with the back 4, if he's going to stick with McKenna, if he's going to stick with Cook, do you know what I mean? Then stick with them. Set up the back 4, because if you can get them working together, like last season, he always seemed to have a certain team that he put out last season, and the momentum everyone went on. So I think it's time for him to go, well, we know he's going to play Johnson, we know he's going to play Gibbs White, so fair enough. But is he going to play Jesse? Because Jesse wasn't there. Was he on the bench? I don't think he was even named on the bench, was there?
He was on the bench.
I didn't see him training, all right, but
he was on the bench. He was definitely on the bench. Like I said, I just said I was impressed with Ryan Yates, but me personally, I think the whole midfield for me impressed me with Yates, Fowler, and Canute. Fowler for me, like I said, he was one of my top players last night, but Was you impressed with him? People in the comments as well. Was you impressed with Fuller? Because he's been given a little bit of criticism on social media. But what was your opinion on Fuller last night?
Well, I'm a big fan of his, and I'm not going to blindly just praise him, but he probably had more touches than anyone, and he just did the simple things. And going back on what I said, that formation, that three in the middle, were there to sit there. They're not going to push forward. They're not. Maybe if you get a free kick, or corner, you got Yatesy jumping into the box, but Yatesy never pushed to get into the box at any point. You know, he never broke his neck to do that. So they were there sitting last night, and they did their job. As much as Cooper told them to do what they actually listened to him, as opposed to what he said after the Leicester game, that they just didn't stick to the game plan. They did yesterday, and it showed. Made us look a lot more solid without being a threat. But touching on what both Des and Dylan have said regarding, I mean, these players have to get used. What we've done this season with the signings is unprecedented. Nobody else has done that. So for anybody or any of us, any Forest fan to expect that it's just going to click, it's just not going to happen. So we're going to have to, unfortunately, and we're suffering through it, you know, we're going to have to give them time to get used to each other. But like Dylan said, if he's making 5 changes per game, that's not ideal either, you know. But going back to what I said, I don't think what the formation and what we saw yesterday, we're going to be seeing that week in, week out. I think it had to stem the flow. And I think you'll see a bit more. And I think we will see O'Brien back in. And I think we will see Mangala back in. And I think you'll see them two with Freuler. And going back to your point about Freuler, he is a world-class player. And I know we use this term loosely, but he actually is a world-class player. We just haven't been able to see it because we haven't played him in the right way. With the right players around him, with the right formation, he will make us tick. He will keep us ticking over. We didn't have a possession last night because the game plan wasn't that. The game plan was how we played in the Championship last season, hit teams on a break. But if you think back, and I'm only going back over memory because I've not watched the highlights, I've not watched the match replay. But there were 2 or 3 occasions where if the ball was right, we could have got Brennan in. You know, there's at least 2 occasions where I remember Dennis playing a really poor ball when all he had to do was lift it over the top and Brennan was in. And Brennan was in against their centre-backs. There's no way he wasn't beating Tyrone Mings for pace, you know. But the ball wasn't right. Now, it just needs one of those balls to click and he's in. And you know how lethal he is. He's one of our best finishers, you know. So on a different day, we might have come away with a win. But I'm not, like I say, I'm not disappointed. I'm not overly joyed by yesterday, but it was what it had to be. As long as he knows that in his mind, and this is the problem, I don't think Cooper in his mind knows what his best formation is, you know, or his best start kind of thing. So he's literally learning on the job, like Dylan just said, you know, and that's what it's going to have to be for this season. And we're going to have to be patient about it. And I think the club have come out and backed Cooper in that sense and thought, you know, realised that actually we've dumped 24 players on him. We've now got to give him the chance to make it work. And it will be a testing season this season, but let's hope we just do about enough and we get into gear certainly by the time we come back from the World Cup, you know, and then we're clicking. But yeah, hopefully it'll get better, my friend.
Yeah. Before we get Des, I'm going to look at the comments as well. This is from Paul. Des said we need to add some quality to what we had last year, and which is correct. The only problem is we seem to have just added quantity instead. And yeah, I think that's what I was saying. Like I said, people come, like I said, with what Des said, what players do you think has disappointed you so far? I know it's early days. We could say, Ben, yeah, it's too early to say, but then just put in the comments if you think Cooper should have brought him, or people in the media saying there's Mamanakis signing, blah blah blah. Put in the comments who do you think has disappointed so far. Des started his first game, got his first goal. Do you think he's the man to lead the line for Forest alongside Brennan and Morgan Gibbs-White?
In short, no. And I don't want to be chasing players before they've even got going. You know, it's harsh. I can only go in what I've seen, Dore. And for me, what the big problem was with him last night, he was trying to run into areas other players were running into. So he was trying to run into the space that Brendan Johnson was occupying on the right wing. You know, rather than get the ball quickly out there and make a run into the middle, I was thinking when Nez or Dylan was talking, one of them was talking about Dennis. I was thinking he potentially needs that coaching that Lewis Grabban was giving Davis, to tell him which areas he was running into and help him in that sense. Because the one thing I've noticed about Dennis, whilst he looks lively, don't get me wrong, I really don't want to sort of pin it on one person. You asked me about this guy in particular. But even from the Grimsby game, I was kind of saying, he looks good, but he needs to do it 20 yards further up the pitch. He needs to be doing it. And yes, he got on the end of a header yesterday, so everyone could come back at me and say, oh, this is what he does. But Forest, for me, and it's not necessarily his fault as well, don't need that kind of player. We've got a lot of those players. We've got a lot of players that drift wide and are clever on the football, and can sort of shoot from range. And I just think yesterday he was kind of getting under the toes of some of the other players without being that focal point that we need from him. When everybody's been clamouring for him, that's why I've kind of stuck with Awoniyi. I don't think ultimately Awoniyi's the one, but at least it gives you something right up there to pin the ball up, and hopefully his confidence builds 1 or 2 more games. And that's my thoughts on Dennis. I'm hoping I'm completely wrong and he turns it around. He scores 3 and 4 games, and we all know that makes a world of difference. But right now, I can't see him being the answer up front. I think there's other players in the team that are better options.
Who do you think? That's someone like Sturridge or Awoniyi? Talk to me on this one.
Well, I thought it was interesting that Sturridge played last night, because at the end of the day, whether he would have scored them or not, those 2 chances against Leicester, you'd have fancied him. You'd have fancied him to at least hit the target or make the keeper work. And of course, Awoniyi didn't do that. Sturridge, for me, is the best finisher at the club. I'd have fancied him to curl one round the keeper from 35 yards, whatever it was, when Awoniyi ran through in the second half. So I think it was interesting that he found his way back into the action, especially considering some of the comments made. Again, God forbid I start picking on Steve Cooper's comments, but the comments he made after the game, when he was talking about misses and if we score them, it's a different story. I know we're going to get onto this subject, so I'm not going to sort of let the cat out of the bag too soon, but there's been a recruitment team buying players over the summer. Who are the ones facing the chop? And the harsh reality is, who are the ones now in line for it? It's not Cooper, and it's not some of the names we've been hearing about. So I think it's interesting that other players. What did slap? Just one thing I think is worth noting. Of course, Gilardino, is it coming from?
Yes, from Watford. I am going to talk about it as well, because I think I've not spoken about the channel about him. I think I mentioned him, but we've not spoke about him because.
But there's just one thing I noticed. There was a thing. So he's been in to sort of look at. He's come in to look at Cooper and look where we can make some differences and advise and do whatever he does. There was one point where he was going ballistic about getting the players up the pitch, and I thought, that don't bode well in that kind of game, does it? Where they're perhaps just looking to get that point, get that sort of result, because we all know Watford's track record. It's worse than Forest and Flowers.
Hey, don't mention this guy on this channel, please, Des. Don't mention that guy on my channel, please. People in the comments, tell off Des. Don't ever mention that guy on my channel again. Des, do you want a free game ban again for mentioning that guy's name? Another player that's been mentioned a lot, Dean Anderson. He was Ashley Young. He scored another long range, and he's getting beaten again from a long range shot. Do you think it's a problem now, like conceding basically the great goals? But do you think he should do better?
Yeah, he should be doing better. He's potentially could be England's number 1, potentially among 3 more other people. But I just think last night was the first time I really thought about it and really watched him and saw it. Do you know what I mean? He can't. Every time there's a shot outside the box, it seems to go in the back of the net. Yes, he's good at his penalties. You'd have him there all day long. He's good at the short ones and stuff like that. But his distribution of the football as well is not very good. It's like he threw one out yesterday and it was to Brennan and it literally went behind him. and Brennan had to catch it. And do you know what I mean? It's like, so, but I think as well is we're looking at Henderson and comparing him to Samba. Because we all know when Samba got that ball, that was it. He could throw that on a 50-pence piece. Do you know what I mean? 30 yards up the field. Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So, and there was some times where you sat there going, go on. Do you know what I mean? He catch the ball. It's like, quickly get the ball out, and he would just hold on to it. And he was like, oh, come on. Do you know what I mean? We just need to start moving forward quicker. Do you know what I mean? But maybe it's just one of them things that are happening. And do you know what I mean? Where I was sat last night, do you know what I mean? It's different to being down there and it coming towards you. Do you know what I mean? Every shot that's come outside the box, he could have had a defender in his way. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them. But I obviously stick with him. Do you know what I mean? Because he's we know he's good. Do you know what I mean? He's potentially playing for England and stuff like that. But I just think as well is if he's this distribution of the ball that's worries me a bit, because we know how like Forest are trying to get out on the counter attack. Do you know what I mean? If he can't throw the ball up, then get someone to make sure they're really close to him so he can roll it out to them. Do you know what I mean? Because there's still ways to get the ball out. But you know what I mean? I think it. Do you know what I mean? But we're focusing on him now because of the way the team's playing. As soon as the team starts gelling together and everyone starts playing the thing, I think as well he may start playing better because the players will be in better positions for him. Maybe the players will start to get him out. Do you know what I mean? Get the ball out to me quicker. Do you know what I mean? Hit it. Do you know what I mean? I'll help you, or stuff like that, and just hoofing it up as well. Some of his when he's kicking the ball up the field, a couple of them went straight out.
Yeah, it was annoying.
Do you know what I mean? But maybe I'm not here bagging him or anything because he's played for Man United. Do you know what I mean? What he did at Sheffield United and stuff like that. So maybe because we are on this little bit of a slump and everything that's gone on in the club and what's going off, it's got to affect someone. It's got to affect the players. And it's somewhere. So let's stick with him. Do you know what I mean? Because there is a good goalkeeper in there, and we've seen it before.
There's two more subjects before we talk about different things about what's happening with Forest. As I said yesterday, like I said, and it frustrated me yesterday. O'Brien coming on the 89th minute, maybe it was like a tactic last minute to do something. I don't know, but do you think Cooper should have brought him on earlier, or do you think it was a smart decision to bring on that time?
Well, I was sitting there, probably not far from you, and we were probably thinking the same thing. When's he going to make another sub? But like going back to it, I think he was settling for a draw, and he didn't want to disrupt what he had at the time. So it's like what we have, we hold. But I do want to touch on the point about Henderson actually, because you and Des have been to every game, haven't you, this season? Has his distribution been that bad before? Because I can't remember it being as bad as it was last night. I think last night was particularly bad. But in general, it's not been that bad, has it? Because I can't remember.
Do you know what?
Take this.
Do you know what I think happens in the Premier League, is like I'd never heard anybody criticising Henderson before last night, and all of a sudden Roy Keane's all over this issue. If you watch the footage, you know he's pinpointed Henderson. He spoke about it a lot. These shots, because there's so much coverage in the Premier League, and because confidence is a little bit fragile right now, it just takes the player almost tuning into the wrong thing at the wrong time. And of course, they're trying to overcompensate a little bit. They're trying hard not to make mistakes and things like that. It just feels like everything is magnified a million times. Of course, it would be. This is the Premier League. It's whatever they call it, the greatest show on earth. You know, but you're right. He has, to me, as a fan who goes and watches games, Henderson's not even been a problem. But all of a sudden, somebody, an expert, a pundit, has picked him out, you know, and then it's almost like he's a major problem in the team again now. I'm seeing people call for Hennessy at Wolves. And you think, you know, football's a game of fine margins. We hear that cliche churned out all the time. Right now, it's the finest of fine margins. So when you're talking about the substitute of O'Brien coming on, and you made the point as about probably didn't want to disrupt it, I totally agree. Because at that point, we were doing enough. As the game went on, I thought we are going to get a point. Villa just petered out even more than they had been early on. So I think it was important to make it solid, keep it as it is, take that positive and move forward. So I think that's what happens. But it's every week, isn't it? It's someone different. And when confidence is low, we seen it when Cooper come in last year. We was 1-0 down at Barnsley, and it was no different to what we'd seen before. All of a sudden, we get a free-flowing goal, and the season changed. You know, confidence builds. I'd never seen confidence build in a Forest team the way it did when Steve Cooper come in. Of course, there's games where I remember Karanka, and there was the game against Blackburn or Wigan around Christmas, and Samba had to save a penalty to get a 0-0, I think, or something like that. Or we won it. I can't remember. But we were pathetic. And then after that, we started building again. The owners didn't see it under Karanka, and he was gone. And I think that's what we're looking for with Cooper, isn't it? We know he can win football matches. We know he can make a difference. It's just getting these players up to that point where the world and his wife's not on the case. And we're guilty of it as well. Do you know, I've picked out players today, do you know, and because that's what we do. But I think it's just a case of building on that result. For everything I've said about performance and worry, I think it's building on it. Do you know, Henderson again, he didn't create a real error during the game. He didn't do well, but he can come out of the game thinking he wasn't at fault for a goal. Do you see what I mean? And that's the point I'm almost trying to make, that as long as they get through the game and it's not massively impacted, next week his kicks might be a bit straighter. You know, his distribution might be that little bit better because his confidence is just picking up week on week.
Can I make one more point? One more point? Just because, like, I mean, touching on again what Des said about the players that we had last season. Now, let's be honest. Maybe not include the left back, but every one of those loan players we had last season was vital to the way we played and the way we finished that season. Are we not surprised that we didn't get at least one of them back? You know, that's what concerns, because he kept saying about how he wanted to keep the core of a team. The core of a team, those loan players were a massive core in that team. I'm really surprised we didn't get any of those back, and I think it would have helped us integrate into the season a lot better if 2 or 3 of those loan players, and in particular Garner and I'll still say Jed, if we'd got them 2, but if we could have, I'm not saying it would have even been possible, but I'm really surprised that we didn't get any of them back, considering how vital they were to how we played last season. But that's just, that's just a tangent point. But I think it would have knitted us together better for this coming season. And now you're bringing in a whole load of strangers who, you know, some of them have never even played in this league, and it's just an uphill task for him. So we've got to be patient. That's all I can say on it. We've got to be patient.
But that's why, despite everything that's been said, as I think we've got the best person for the job, because we was in an absolute mess last season where it wasn't working. You know, Cooper didn't get promoted with Swansea, and then they said he was negative, he was this, he was that. He come to Forest and he did what he had to do. He's done it. He's won things. He's done big jobs. And I think we've got the perfect person to do that, hopefully, for my opinion, because it's a massive elephant in the room, isn't it? Who's bought these players? That is the elephant in the room. So hopefully we can sort of draw a line under that. He got stuck with a load of rubbish last year under Chris Hughton, and he got the best out of him. So I'm hoping this year, with players that are better, you know, for whatever I've said about them and whatever, they're still good footballers, and they play to a much higher standard than those that were there. We've got the right man to take it forward. Again, just like everything, we've sang his name, we've done whatever we can. It's just got to be afforded that time to do it.
There's 94 people in. If you can do a massive favour for me, please do hit the like button. I'm on 35 likes. If you can get me to 50 or 70 likes, please do. I wanted to, before we do change subject, I want to ask Des this or whoever. Toffolo. People used to criticise him about buying him. We brought Lodgy in, Brazilian international, played for Atletico Madrid, fantastic signing. Des, as people seen it, criticising him on the left of performance. Toffolo, people criticise Toffolo, why we brought him, bad attitude, blah, blah, this and that. let me get Dylan first. Then I'll get. I'm not going to get Des. We're going to see Des get that little grin right there. Dylan, I personally thought Toffolo was good yesterday. How did you thought it felt? And people in the comments as well. Like, I see you in the comments. I can see your comments about. I think it was over 2 shows ago about Toffolo, this and that. Are you regretting what you said? Because for me, like I said, Villa wasn't great. Let's be real. It wasn't that great. But Toffolo for me was good. People in the comments, would you play him against Watford? Not Watford, Wolves. Dylan, how do you think he played?
He was solid. He didn't pull up any trees like everyone else, but yeah, it was solid. The problem is what I feel is with the likes of Toffolo. O'Brien kind of, when he first come, Toffolo and O'Brien, everyone was like, why are we buying Championship players? We're in the Premier League, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, O'Brien went different. Do you know what I mean? Toffolo's been in and out. And then you've got Lodi, who's a Brazilian international. Do you know what I mean? And he's not lit the world up, but Toffolo, I think as well, if you take the stigma out of where he come from and the Championship side of it, he's a solid player. Do you know what I mean? I think at the minute, the way we're playing and everything, we're just literally focusing on every single person. Do you know what I mean? Someone makes a little mess up. Do you know what I mean? We're on them straight away. Do you know what I mean? Because of, like Des said, this is the best league in the world, and all the cameras are on us and everything. But yeah, Toffolo. The thing is, I believe, and I still believe from earlier what I said is, if he's going to stick with Toffolo, stick with Toffolo. Do you know what I mean? Don't put Toffolo in last night, then put Lodi in on Saturday, then put Toffolo in. Do you know what I mean? And keep doing that, or sticking one in for 2 games and then bringing the other one back. Do you know what I mean? I think now it's time to start cementing how you want to play. Do you know what I mean? All right, Toffolo did all right last night. Stick with him. Do you know what I mean?
Sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry. I disturbed you. Carry on. You finished, Joe.
No, I was just saying that I got no criticism. Steve, do you know what I mean? It's just because the poor run of form we're running, because we're not expected to we was expecting to be higher up the league and do a bit better than what we have been doing. I just think it's every single player is under scrutiny, just the way it is. And it's going to be until we start picking up wins and start the performances getting better.
Des?
You're asking me about Loggy, aren't you?
Yeah.
Loggy or Lodi?
Lodi.
You spell it Loggy, don't you? You pronounce it Loggy.
Lodi.
Never people, apart from you, Des, pronounce it Loggy, but apparently you're supposed to pronounce it Loggy. But I've never heard it pronounced that way. But
no, I'm not. But anyway, the point is, why doors come to me is because, you know, I spoke there about sort of having faith in Cooper, and I've spoken about it from day one. You know, in Cooper we trust, and I'll argue with anybody who gets upset with what's going on. You see people jump up when the goals go flying in, and they're going, "Fuck's sake, Cooper," you know, blah blah blah, and the hands up in the air, and it's horrible to watch because I think our job in the stadium is to support. But what I can't comprehend, and I don't know, Steve Cooper defended the team last week, and he might be looking at this maybe and shouting, he don't know what he's on about. Everyone's a football manager. But at Leicester, it looked like his confidence with that shot, he was just a rabbit in the headlights. He looked like he'd give up to me just before half time. He looked like he didn't know where he was, what he's doing here. You know, he's been playing at Atletico Madrid. Not that should make any difference, but I'm not questioning his professionalism. But all of a sudden, he's found himself in a team really, really struggling in the Premier League. Don't know what the best formations are at the back, at the front. Everybody's telling me he's an attacking left back. Some are saying he's better in a 4-4-2. Again, there's a lot of hype around these kind of players. But what the one thing that upset me last week was the way it just appeared just before half time that heads properly went down, and that's when I will get a bit irate. You know, and a bit upset because
I was next to him, and he was high rated after the first 10 minutes.
But it just seemed like that, you know, from a player who's really off the pace. Again, he might grow into it and he might become good. If you compare him to Toff, I wasn't a massive fan of Toff when he came in, but now you see what everybody's saying in the comments. He come in and he does a steady job. You know, sometimes you've just got to know, you've got to be able to rely on players. And I think right now we can rely on Toffolo to do what we know Toffolo can do. We can't rely on Loggy to give us all this international pedigree and experience and taking the game to the opposition. We know what Toff does. He's not going to be, he doesn't run at 100 miles an hour. He's not the quickest, you know, but he's solid. He'll win his headers. He'll get across and cover, and he'll put in a strong challenge. And I think at a point where we keep talking about who plays, what formations, Dylan's been making the point throughout of we've got to find this first 11. You know, I made this point a couple of weeks ago. Toffolo's in it because you can trust what he does. You know, you can trust what he does. It's the same with, I don't know, I look at somebody like McKenna. I made the point on my little summary last night that McKenna did what McKenna does. You know, we know he's struggling a little bit in the Premier League, but he's better than anything else we've got. You know, he's our best centre back in wide. But we'll take out the new signings who I've not seen that much of. But in terms of the old guard, and I always say it, you know, when we've been going on about managers and we've been in different periods and we're looking at old sort of war horses in terms of managers, I always say what they would do if they came into Forest. If you go and get your Rafa Benitez or your Sam Allardyce or Warnock or whoever you want, they would go and they'd go, I'll have Toffolo, McKenna, Worrell, maybe, Aurora, players they can trust to do a job. And that's what they need first. And then they build from it. Get that confidence going. Then realise what you've got in front of you. And then you take it forward in ways you can. You start getting a little bit more exuberant, you know, a little bit more adventurous and taking it from there. I think the midfield is exactly the same. The reason I've been raving about Ryan Yates tonight, you know, I do like him, not as much as some people. I think he's a great horse for a course at times. But right now, he needs to be in that team. You know, he needs to be starting that game because, you know, and again, with Surridge, I'm not saying Surridge should necessarily start. There's lots of options up there. But that Leicester game, you know, most times out of 10, he would at least hit the target, you know, make the keeper save it, do something, or just bend it round, you know, just bend it round the players that were there. And I think that's how we get to our best 11. I think we've all been skirting around the issue for the last few weeks of how we get to our best 11. It's the players you can trust to do a job. And for me, God forbid I hark back to last season and everything that happened. I see people saying, get over it. But for me, I would have much more trust in them right now, even though I knew we needed better players. Colback, you know, I'd love Colback to be around the squad because, again, you know what you're going to get. I said right at the start of the season, I think he might be the first one out because he played in the Premier League before. He dropped down. He's getting a bit older. You know, his legs aren't what they were. I thought he might be first, but right now, I feel Cooper could trust him, and you know what you're going to get. It seems with O'Brien, you know, not quite sure what's going on there. He seems to be that player to fill that role, but again, there's a little bit of inconsistency. Foyer, inconsistency. Dennis, inconsistency. Nico Williams has become a little bit inconsistent. Whereas why we all are back to signing one or two from last year and using one or two more this year is because they've shown that consistency and we could trust them week in, week out.
100%. Right, people in the comments, who was your man of the match yesterday? I'll get the panel to say who was the man of the match. So boys, think about who was the man of the match. I'd like people get in the comments, who was your man of the match yesterday? Let me start with you, Dylan. Who was your man of the match and why?
The crowd.
Yeah, no, right.
I'm going for the crowd, the atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to pick anyone. Do you know what I mean? Because Yatesy, yeah. Do you know what I mean? I would say if I'm going to pick anyone, I'll pick Yates. And I just wanted to mention something on Yates is that I don't know how many managers we've had since he's first come into the first team, but every single manager we've had has played him.
You know what, right, Dylan? Can I stick? Wait, like, before you carry on, Dylan, let me shout out to Eve because that's Eve. Hello, Eve. How you doing, Eve? I saw your comment on Twitter, and Eve said exactly the same.
That's it. Yep, that was it.
Yes, that's what Eve. Shout out to Eve. I saw the comment as well.
I think she's put it from 2019. But it's like people have said, people do bag him, people do think it because he does the nitty gritty. He does the things that people don't want. But how many managers? I can't think of it off the top of my head. You got to go 5. Every single manager has played it.
Yeah.
But without saying I told you so, Dylan, like you have, that just backs up the point I've just made, doesn't it? Every single manager comes in, and we all know what Yates can do. It's a bit disrespectful now to talk about his limitations because we all know what he can do. But every manager's coming in and they're going, "I trust this guy to play in that team." You know, every time his position's in doubt, whether it's Zinchenko, James Garner, whoever coming in, Colback, you know, fighting for a place, he comes good. He got dropped last year against Stoke, come good again. You know, and he has a massive impact. And I think that just sort of reiterates what I said about trust of managers, and that's the key thing going forward.
There was sorry, just a quick one, just to add to that. There's one person that I that loved Roy Keane when he was at the club, and I've seen a couple of things, and he mentioned Ryan Yates, and he said at the time when he was at the club, out of anyone, it was Yatesy that he would go and talk to and advise because he could see a player in him. So a man of Roy Keane's caliber and what he achieved in the game, for him to give him that recognition, do you know what I mean? And for all these managers to keep picking him, there's something there.
Des, who's your man of the match?
Well, I said it already. You know, Yates here. I think he was head and shoulders. I think from the first minute he played with intent. You know, again, I'm just going to contradict slightly what I just said about ability and doing him a disservice. Whatever his limitations are, whatever he can do on a football pitch, he gives 110%. You know, and a fit Ryan Yates, somebody who's looking sharp and can get around the pitch, because that's what the Premier. That's why we're struggling, isn't it? Because we've not got athletes like a lot of these teams. You know, we're struggling because players are like Toffolo. We're questioning him because he's not your modern left back, you know, who gets up and down the line. And I think people have been questioning Yates to that degree. But the more I see him now, he's becoming that athlete that can get all around the football pitch and adapting to the Premier League much quicker than most.
100%. Last but not least, Ez, who was yours?
Just to be a little bit different, I'm going to give some praise to Toffolo, actually, for him to come in after, what's he missed, the last 5 games, and he came and slotted straight in. I think he was solid. You know, I think you can't look too far past the defensive players yesterday. The middle three, all 3 of them did their job. Kenner, even Cook. Well, this was the thing, and I just kind of wanted to touch on. The problem was when that lineup came out, we were all a little bit annoyed with it. So there's certain players, obviously, we all want to see in there, and it's not filling us with too much confidence going into games when we're seeing a lineup that we don't agree with. But yeah, going back to man of the match point, yeah, I would think Toffolo did as well as anybody else, to be honest. I don't think anybody stood out for me. Really didn't. In the first half, Dennis had some good. There was times when Dennis out-jumped Tyrone Mings. You know, he's got a hell of a leap on him. You know, he can get up and get to a ball. And then when Surridge came on, he was getting flick-ons as well. So if we're going to play long balls and things like that, we maybe got to play Surridge in that system because he does get flick-ons. He just needs players around him. But yeah, I'm veering off topic. But yeah, Toffolo is my man of the match, mate. He does as well as anybody else did.
I'll make mine short and sweet. I'll give it Ryan Yates. Fuller was close there for me. Because I personally thought it was good. Because I remember I spoke to what team did he play for again? It was at Atlanta that he played for. And it was an English guy, and he said to me he plays better, and as well when he plays for Switzerland, when he plays in a free midfield, and he sits in that role. And I think he did well for us yesterday. But Ryan, as Des has said it, documented it. People trust Yates what to do. And this is why I'm a fan of Ryan Yates. There's things that he can do that fans love him. And he always gives 110%. And this is why I've always said, even if Joe Worrell was not playing, sometimes, like Brendan has said, yesterday, there was always 3 people always on him. Every time, if it was Brennan, if it was Morgan Gibbs-White, there was always 3 players always on him. And it was hard for him to get past them because, like I said, we had Ashley Long, Mings, Boudet, the Argentinian guy that plays for Villa as well, always on him straight away. And that's why, as I think Des mentioned at the start of the show, it was difficult to get them into the game. So, but for me, Ryan Yates, to me, without doubt, my man of the match. Right, there's a bloody hell. Hour's gone quick. I want to, like I said, I'm trying to make this quick because we all do an hour. But as you know, came out the Guardian, John Pies. I'm not trying to be negative. Like I said, it's something that's out in the open. Everyone talks about it on social media. About Forest have sacked 2 people. Scouts, I think it was. I don't know if, like I said, Des doesn't really know much about it. I think Dylan knows much about it as well, as well. People comment, how do you feel about it? Like I said, I think. Dylan, what's your opinion on anything, Dylan? Before I get before I say anything.
Well, it makes you. You got it right. Let's go back. Let's go back a couple of days after the Leicester game. Right, Tuesday night, Monday night, everyone's angry. Everyone's angry. I'm not bothered who you are. You're angry at Cooper. Regardless, you've gone to bed. You've woke up the next morning. You've thought a bit more rational. The clubs, and then when you sit down and you think to it, and you think one man's just been given 24 players. 24 players. Not even he would want them. Do you know what I mean? And like Des said earlier, or was it as Des or as said that we wanted to try and keep the spirit from last year. Do you know what I mean? I think the only player we probably couldn't sign from last year was going to be Spence because he was always going to go to Tottenham. Yeah, do you know what I mean? He's a London boy. He was going to go down there, right? But why could we not? Was it the last day of the transfer window? Garner goes to Everton. Do you know what I mean? So how come we never got him? Keenan Davis, all right. Do you know what I mean? So, some people have good opinions on him, some people don't. Do you know what I mean? But Cooper always said at the end of that final, what I want to do is I want to keep this core of players. Do you know what I mean? So I could imagine him walking into an office and going, right, I want him, I want him, I want him, I want him. No, do you know what I mean? So it makes you. So looking back now, thinking, well, why didn't we get Garner? Garner would have come to us. We would have paid the money for it. We've paid more money for probably less players. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So, and why couldn't we get Davis? Davis could do a job. Do you know what I mean? And other, do you know what I mean? Max Lowe, I wasn't. Do you know what I mean? Maybe as a backup or something like that. But so it makes me. I'm going on a bit about it, but it makes you wonder now. With this all coming out, well, why would one manager want 24 players? Do you know what I mean? We needed the players, don't get me wrong, because of the loan month. But why would you not, like we said that earlier, like Des said, you stick with what you know, you stick with what's good. Do you know what I mean? And you build it. Look at the likes of Bournemouth and Fulham. They've gone out and bought a couple of players, but they've still got their core from last season. So,
because Bournemouth brought, like I said, they brought quite a lot in January.
But they still bonded over the last few months, didn't they?
Yeah,
so they still won matches and stuff like that. So to me, it makes you wonder now with the own. So then we fast forward to Friday.
Sorry to interrupt, Dylan. That's a great point you make about Bournemouth, and the reason I'm interrupting is to back you up. When Bournemouth signed all those players, they went off the rails a little bit, didn't they? Mm-hmm. They went off the rails for a few weeks. We caught them up, and ultimately they just got over the line. So by the end of the season, it worked for them. They go into the Premier League in a lot better shape.
Yeah.
So they basically brought their players for the Premier League when there was 8-9 points clear at the top. It nearly backfired because they lost all their rhythm in terms of picking up results and things like that. So it's so crucial not to go there. I think we've all learned a lesson. I think anybody watching, we wanted to believe that these were going to be world beaters and going to set the club alight. But the reality is, it takes time. It takes time, and the pundits are pundits for a reason. I don't like some of them, but when they're all in the eyes
Yeah,
of
but
20
everyone has an opinion. That's the problem. And I'm sorry, Des, I'm sorry to in. When I hear pundits about talking about if it's positive about Forest, negative about Forest, if you don't like people's opinion on social media, don't listen to them. That's what I'm saying, because we talk about, like, to learn as a people out there, we talk about a club. People might not like Des' opinion, Dylan's or Ez, or my opinion. If you don't like our opinion, don't watch it. Some people, like I'll mention Richard Keys, he's always on about us, consistently negative, as well as what's his name? What's the other guy's name who's with him? I don't know. I forgot his name now.
Andy Gray.
Andy Gray. He's always on us with, but social media. This is why we've got Twitter, because if you pick out the negative bit, you're gonna put it out there, and people and those Forest fans are gonna jump on it and say, "Okay, you're talking about us. Just don't. If you see him talking about Forest, don't listen to him, because that's all he's gonna do. Talk nonsense. Don't listen to him, Forest fans, because he's a bellend."
Make another point before we get the Des and Ez in, is what I'm trying to make is now is obviously the owner gives Cooper a contract and basically says, "I trust you." Do you know what I mean? That's it. I trust you now. So, and then we're seeing these sackings coming out. So he's dissecting somewhere. He's looked back. He's took a step back and gone, "So where's these 24 players come from?" He's probably spoke to Steve, and Steve's gone, "Yeah, but I only wanted so many of them. Do you know what I mean? But I can't do this, 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 and this with this. This is why it's taking so long." Do you know what I mean? So maybe now they're going to be looking at it, and I've said this earlier to a friend. I says, but maybe there might be, come January, maybe they're going to try and get rid of a couple of them and bring in and say to Cooper, "Right, we're going to build the team right, like the recruitment team with you, and give you what you need." But I've got a feeling, my last point, I've got a feeling they're going to go in. I've got a feeling they might go in for Jed Spence on loan at Tottenham, because Johnson's not hitting his heights like he did last season. And the reason he hit his heights because he had Jed with him. We all thought this was good. Do you know what I mean? We get promoted, we keep the players. We get promoted, we keep Jed. Get promoted, we keep Jed, we get Johnson. They go all firing. Didn't work out that way, did it? Jed's in the abyss. He's not even getting on the pitch. Anything? Why not? Get him for 6 months, see how it goes.
Before I said, and this is Gary. Sorry, Gary's going to actually kill me when he takes me to Wolves next week. No club statement sacking. Need to keep things productive to announcement. Something more than journalists. Look at the media storm last week. 100% Gary. Gary, I do apologise because, like I said, remember what the journalists were saying about Steve Cooper is going to be sacked, all this nonsense, and it is true. It is true, but it is out there. And Percy never gets things wrong. I think, like I said, Daniel Taylor as well. When he says things, gets a wooden spoon out. But they're journalists for a reason, because they're like, that's their job and all that.
The quality journalist.
He's a quality journalist as well. So, but like I said, when he gets things out there, things happen. Right. Before we do go, like I said, if you're new to my channel, please do hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. Des, when are you doing the show again, Des?
The Monday.
Yeah, are you doing the show next Monday?
Next Monday. It's been weeks.
I know people that Des does the show Monday night. People, like I said, we've got Wolves on Saturday. Des is back on next Monday. So if you do want to get on Des's show, people, message me, message Des.
I'd love to be able to leave the tin hat on the side and do it after a win.
As well. But like I said, people, if you do want to get the show, it could be anyone. If you want to come, message me, message Des, and we'll get you on Monday, 9 o'clock. As well, Ez has got a show as well. Ez doing a little talk about it.
No, well, you encouraged me. I've got to get it up and running again. But
stop slacking, man.
No, do you know what it is? It's just too busy, mate. My work finishing schedule is so erratic. You know, I can't plan anything around it. That's the problem with it. But just, I mean, I don't know. And I'm just going off what you said before we started the stream regarding these 2 seconds. But doesn't it seem like some sort of statement of intent from Marinakis and guys head up, as in, like, well, we're not 100% happy with. We're going to back Cooper, but somebody's head's going to roll, and it's like he's made a statement of intent where, I'm no pushover. Yes, I've given Cooper a extended contract, but somebody's going to have to roll for this, and maybe there is something that we have to look into with our recruitment, because there are far too many players. But touching on what Dylan's little tangent there about Jed, actually, about coming on loan. I mean, we still got about one Premier League loan slot available, but also we have, haven't we? Who else?
We've only got Henderson. We've got Henderson on loan from the Premier League. That's it.
Yeah, we have 2 Premier League.
But that's not the Premier League. We're only allowed two from the Premier League.
Yeah, so Jed Spence we could get, couldn't we? So we could technically still get Jed on loan, couldn't we? Isn't that's not defeating my point, is it? But the point I was going to make is, like, if we hadn't brought Aurier in, now you brought Aurier in, I can't see that happening. But it could have been a potential, because he needs game time, and he doesn't deserve to be rotting away. He's not even getting on the bench for Tottenham, so it's a bit of a shame for him. But yeah, that was just my point. I just feel like Marinakis had to kind of make some sort of statement of intent, and those two losing their job was him basically saying, I'm no pushover, and somebody's head's going to roll for the way we've started our season. And he's not gone for the head coach, he's gone for some of the recruitment team. So that might be behind. But also, touching on what Gary said in this point, it's not something that the club's ever going to release. They're not going to go into depth about who they've sacked. All we're going to say is we parted company. So unfortunately, that is going to cause speculation amongst supporters and through journalism and things like that, because a club are never going to go into details over sackings ever. So unfortunately, it does leave it open for speculation.
You know what? Before we do go, and we'll get, let me get Des' opinion on this. And again, we're talking about, and it's out there open, people. If you've not seen what Dan Taylor, and this is Dan Taylor's quotes, not my quotes. This is what Dan Taylor says regarding again. Last week, Dave Murphy was staying at Forest. Then it's soon to be gone. Leave Forest, Dave Murphy, and this what I think. And Gary's spot on about this. This kind of thing. I'm not trying to be disrespect Daniel Taylor, or because, like I said, he's a journalist and that's his job to do these kind of things. What's your opinion about it? Like I said, do you think it's right of journalists? Like I said, I sometimes have an issue with journalists saying this. Like I said, that's their job. But what's your opinion on it, Jez? Like the Dave Murphy situation.
The only reason we don't like him saying it is because it affects our club and it shows some more people. But you keep saying it yourself. You keep saying the words, all of you. It's his job. The juicy of the story. What I will say about Daniel Taylor, for whatever. I don't know if he's got any issues. I don't know the guy. I've never seen him. I don't know what he looks like. But he's a Forest fan, but he's got a job to do. And all of his stories are normally spot on. Or at least not denied. I know Forest have got this mentality a little bit of never complain, never explain. They never really confirm or deny rumours a lot of the time. But if it was that libelous and that wrong, there'd be people chasing him down and trying to find out what his game is. And at the end of the day, he's a journalist. He can write what he wants. And if with his role at the Athletic
he's
now,
successful. He is successful.
Yeah, he's very successful. He's an award-winning journalist. He tends to sit back and leave the Forest stuff to other people. Obviously, Paul Taylor is the main Forest writer. So it's when the big scoops come in, and that's what journalists do. They come out for the big scoops. The reason Richard Keys is talking about Forest is because he's riled everybody up. That's exactly what he wants.
Exactly, that's what I said, and that's my point.
This is why they do it, Dore. He can put his stuff on Twitter as long as he's not telling blatant lies, and there's an element of truth in there. People are going to read his articles. That's what he wants to do. He wants people to buy The Athletic. And that's exactly what he's doing. What I will say on all of this, and I get Gary's point to some degree. God forbid I agree with him again, but I get Gary's point. I've said this right from the start. I don't care about who's the transfer acquisitions panel or what Dave Murphy's doing. You know, they're probably nice guys who do stuff in and around the club, really good work. But I'm only really bothered about the football pitch. Yes, Ez was right. We will comment on stuff because it's thrown up at us. I said to you in the summer when we're talking about transfers, I can't wait to start talking. I love these shows after the game. You know, when we can talk about something that's happened, I can say my opinion, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, or people totally disagree with it. You know, that's what I love doing. But at the end of the day, let them get on with it. And in time, you know, they'll do what they're going to do. We all put 2 and 2 together last Monday night, Tuesday morning, and come up with 76.
Yeah.
You know, because it wasn't happening. And how many times does it keep happening? So if it annoys you, you know, don't read it. Don't
exactly.
Do it.
That's my point, Forest fans. That's my point. Because, like I said, all the journalists got it wrong last week. I saw in the comments from Nick Hempshaw. Nick, I need you on my show. Message me on Twitter. Last week, all journalists led the club wrong. And like I said, it was all wrong. I said Cooper was getting sacked. But look what happened. Out of bloody nowhere, he signed a contract. So journalists, like I said, they've got a job, and that's what they do. And like I said, it is a tough job out there. Like, yeah,
do you know one of the reasons we want to be in the Premier League is for this? Do you know, from when obviously I'm an old man now, I'm cracking on. But the difference between now and the Premier League and when we was last there 23 years ago, which I can remember as a teenager, is the exposure. And I quickly realised about halfway through that period that I wanted Forest to be in the Premier League because whenever you turn the telly on, you see something about Burnley or Watford or West Brom, or do you know what I mean? I wanted to turn the telly on and see Forest. I want Simon Jordan talking about Forest. I want Dan Taylor putting out stories about Forest. This is why we do it. This is why we do things like this. We get engrossed in it. We pick the bones out of it. We talk rubbish about it. And it's just that, isn't it? Enjoy the exposure. I keep saying enjoy the season in the sun. You know, let's get behind the team on Saturday, get behind the manager, and let's give it another go.
100%. 100%. Right, people, to get going. Well, thank you for everyone that has watched. Myself, Dylan, Ez, and the man himself, Des, talk about the Forest. Like I said, what a good point for us. But hopefully we build that result up to Wolves. I've got the previous show with Wolves fan, and that's on a Thursday at 9 o'clock. So please go and watch that. It's going to be a good show as well because there's lots to talk about. Forest, Wolves, I think they're third to bottom. So this game is going to be massive. I know me and Des going. Ezzy, are you going to the game on Saturday, Ez?
No, I won't be at the Wolves game, but I'll be at the next home game, which is Liverpool, isn't it?
Don't talk about Wolves. Don't talk about Liverpool yet.
No, I know. Well, we've got a massive week. We've got a massive Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday week coming up. You know,
we've got a massive one.
Yeah, it's got to, the last one didn't go very well. You know, let's hope this one goes a little bit better. But Liverpool are there for the taking, mate. Very mid-table team, mate. They're not all that anymore.
Talk about Liverpool. We're not talking about Liverpool. We forget out there. We don't care about Liverpool.
I was looking forward to. I told you.
Talk about Liverpool. We're talking about soon. But like I said, thank everyone for coming on my search as well. As well, Des, talk about the show, Des.
Yeah, I just want to plug Do Daily. I've been chatting about all the usual things away from football day in, day out for about 2.5 years now, and it's not easy. Like as I'm rushed off my feet, I probably run myself into the ground a little bit, but just like to put out some positivity and try and support people with mental health. Got lots of fantastic followers from DoreOnTour, but it's got a bit dry recently. So if you could get behind
people,
Do Daily,
please go and subscribe to Do Daily. Like people. It's mental health. When was it? It was a mental health week yesterday. I think
it was Mental Health Awareness Day yesterday.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
What I do, people, is not go full on with it. I just talk about my experience, probably put myself in it, put my foot in it sometimes with my own sort of thing. But it makes me feel better, and hopefully it makes people just feel good about what they're doing. So if you can support the channel, that'd be absolutely amazing. Do Daily, one word.
As a viewer of your channel, what I get from your channel is you're always pushing yourself, and by pushing yourself, it helps other people push themselves, and that's what I get. I started training regularly after watching you regularly, mate, because I saw you were doing it and you were pushing yourself. So yeah, it's not so much mental health; it's more motivation. And as you call it, you got Monday Motivation, you got all those kind of shows that you do. And yeah, I recommend anybody who hasn't already. I don't know why you haven't. Go and join us daily. Yeah, no,
people, like I said, go and subscribe to Do Daily if you can. Like, you know what? Let me get it out there because so people can link to it. Because like I said, Des, he works hard, like I work hard on my channel as well, people. So if you can, do a massive favor for Des, subscribe because like I said, he works hard for the channel, and people, there's a lot of people like who do suffer with mental health, and sometimes, like I said, I do sometimes, and sometimes Des will talk to me for like a little talk about it, and it's good to have Mr. Do Daily talking. So people, if you can, subscribe to Do Daily. Right, people, like I said, I'll be back on like I said Thursday, I think. Let me get it out now, Des, for you before we do go. I put a link in, people, so if you can subscribe to Do Daily, please do. The link is in the link as well as there. So if you can, people, subscribe to Do Daily. Thursday, 9 o'clock, I'll be there. So, like I said, I'm a Wolves fan. Listen, people, as well, before we do subscribe, I have put the link in there. So please do subscribe to Do Daily. Dylan, thank you, Dylan, for coming on my show. You back on the bus tomorrow, Dylan?
I am, mate. I am.
I'll get you, Butler.
You'll get you, Butler.
Like I said, people, like I said, Dylan, Des, thank you for coming on to the channel. And it's all like Des. If you do want to come on Des' channel, please do. And if people, there's 61 people in here. If you do want to come on my show, message me on Twitter, Instagram, the lot. Please do. You can have your opinion on there. Like I said, Dylan, Des, and Ezzy, they come on the channel. We'll talk about Forest and just.
Can I say one last thing before I go? Because it was really brilliant. Yes, one of the great things, and I want to give you a shout out, mate, because you're too humble and too shy to take this, but I want to say it live on there. I've got so much that I owe to Dore, because I wouldn't be doing what I do. I wouldn't be on these channels, and I wouldn't be at the Forest games at the moment if it wasn't for Dore. For him introducing me to the people that I've met and who have helped me get to games this season. If it wasn't for Dore, that wouldn't have happened. And what was brilliant, and what we do, it seems to be a routine now, and it really makes my match days, is that we all meet up near the club shop, and it's really great. And anybody, don't be shy, because I had a couple of people come up yesterday saying, recognizing me from my channel and from seeing me on Doors, and saying, you know, coming over. And guys, if you ever see us, don't be shy. Come over, you know, have a chat, get on Doors vlog, and
just stay away from Des. Just stay away from Des. He's annoying, as well as Dylan. They're both annoying. Don't go to them two.
Get on his.
Me and Des will be stood in the corner looking happy.
They're both annoying people. Don't go to them. Before we go, where's that comment? Mark, I do apologise. You'll be on the next show, Mark. I do apologise. I said, did Mark say, come on, but Mark, I'll get you on the next show. I'll get you on the Wolves. Mark, you'll be on the Wolves one. You'll be on the Wolves one. Like I said, Mark, I do. People, get on my show. Right, we'll get going. Thank you for everyone that coming on. If you can, before you leave, do a massive favour for me. Hit the like button, subscribe if you know. Make sure everyone subscribe to Ez's Forest. Make sure everyone subscribe to Do Daily Des. And make sure everyone, if you go on Dylan's bus, give him a tip because he is a great bus driver. Right. Right, people, I'm going to get going. Thank you, everyone. And I'll speak to you. I'll see you Thursday at 9 o'clock. Peace and love, people. Up the Forest.
Right.